So you're playing Genshin, you're doing some 10 pulls, and while you don't get a 5-star, you do get 4-star Kujou Sara. Now, what do you get with Kujou Sara? Besides a character that is unfortunately their true potential locked behind their C6, well, Sara is a bow-wielding Electro user who was designed specifically for Hyper Carry Raiden, which makes sense. You know, Sara is kind of like Raiden's second-hand person, so it does make sense that they would have that kind of synergy in a team, but it's not fully unlocked until C6. And in this video, we're going to look at the basics of Kujou Sara, how her kit works, how her buffing mechanism works, all of that fun stuff. Now, I am going to show Sara's build at the very end of the video, so do be sure to stick around for that. But first, we're going to talk about how she actually works. Now, her normal and her charge her normal attacks are going to be pretty standard. They're going to do physical damage. I do like the animation. They fit her personality a lot. Her charge attack is just going to do electro infused. Now, before we talk about her skill, I do need to let you know that my Sara is C6, and at C2, the way that her skill works is a little bit different. If we use her skill, she is going to move back, leaving a crow feather. If you do not have C2, she will not leave the crow feather. When this crow feather explodes, right, at C2, it will give the attack buff. At C1 or C0, you have to then do a charged attack after you hit her skill to place the crow feather. So if you do not have C2, there will be no crow feather. Whenever you move back, you have to do a charge attack to place the crow feather. Then the crow feather will explode, dealing AoE electro damage as well as giving the attack buff. I know it's a little bit confusing, but my Sara is C6, so I did want to explain that if you don't have C6, she will not leave the initial crow feather there. Now, this attack buff that this crow feather gives is based on her base attack. It is not her overall attack. It is only this white number, which is Sara's base attack and the base attack of her weapon. So you want to make sure that you're giving her a very high base attack weapon, which we'll talk about that later. Now, Sara does have a passive that whenever you use her skill and she gets the move back, it will make the next decreased charged attack. It will make the next charged attack decrease its time by 60%. So it doesn't take long to get the charge attack to place the crow feather, right? Just remember, if you are C0 or C1 with Sara, you have to do the charge attack. You will not get the crow feather like mine has whenever she first uses the skill. Now, her burst. Her burst is going to do a call down of lightning, doing a very initial higher damage electro strike, and then is going to radiate out, dealing more electro damage to the enemies in the surrounding area. If you use her burst, the burst will also grant the attack bonus of the skill. So you do not have to use the skill. You can just use the burst. However, I do recommend working the skill in so that way you can build energy back up being able to use her burst, because if you're using her with C6, then you're most likely using her with on-field Hyper Carry Raiden, which means that you want to use her burst to charge up Raiden's ring. So just work the skill in there, get some energy back to her as well. So if we look at Sara's attack, it is 1840, Raiden's is 1754. If we then use her burst, we are going to get the attack buff that comes from her skill. Raiden's attack's 2548, Sara's 2600. So like I said, you can just use her burst. You do not have to actually use her skill to get the attack buff. Now, her second passive is just whenever the extra little pieces of her burst hit enemies, it's going to restore some energy to all party members. That's all that her second passive does. Now, because I've been talking about her C6, I do real quick want to talk about her C6 and her C2, like we talked about earlier. Her C2 is going to make it whenever you use her skill and she moves back, it places a crow feather there. So you're essentially getting one crow feather for moving back, one crow feather for the charge attack. This does not stack attack bonuses. Only one instance of the attack bonus can exist at a single time. So don't get that confused. It just makes it a little bit easier. You can use her skill, swap to Raiden, allow Raiden to catch the incoming the attack bonus, so that way she can then use her burst. Now, her C6 is where she unlocks her true potential. It is specific towards electro damage. It is going to give electro damage a crit damage bonus. So that is going to mean that when Raiden's on the field and she uses her burst, it is going to give that the crit damage bonus. It's not going to give Benny a crit damage bonus because he's not doing any electro damage. It has to be electro damage. Something else with Sara. Her attack bonus only lasts for 6 seconds. So it is really, really good With Raiden, or a better way to say it is that Raiden can use it because Raiden's burst is front-loaded damage. Whenever she draws her sword and she does that initial strike, she will be able to use that attack bonus from Sara. Somebody like Eula or Kaching, who is an Electro character, right? Her main damage is backloaded to where whenever Kaching starts her burst, it doesn't do the main big instance of damage until the final hit. So she may not be able to use Sara's attack bonus because I don't remember if Kaching's burst animation lasts longer than 6 seconds, but it may run out before she does the final hit because Kaching's is backloaded, Raiden's is front-loaded damage. And the reason that that really works out for Raiden is, as you can see, if we are to do our full setup, giving Chevy's attack buff and resistant shred and Benny's buff and charge up the ring fully, and then we use her burst, she's going to hit over 300k with Raiden. And then we're going to still have an attack buff as we're going through the rest of her burst, but that initial slash is definitely going to be getting that attack bonus and electro crit damage bonus as well that comes from C6 Sara. Now for artifacts. As you can see, I am running Emblem on Sara. This is one of her better sets. The reason that I am not running Noblesse, which is her other best set, is going to be because I am running Noblesse on Bennett, as you can see here. You cannot stack Noblesse buffs, so because I have a Noblesse user in the party, I am running Emblem. This does give her more energy recharge, so I can use her burst more. It also gives her burst a little bit extra damage. So you saw earlier, 101k off of Sara's burst. I'm not going to say no to an extra 101k whenever I can just have it. For the main stats, like I said, ER, electro damage, don't look at this electro goblet. It's abhorrent. It's horrible. And then crit rate or crit damage, depending on what you need more of. If I was going to say a 4-star artifact set, I would probably say Exile, because you're going to be getting up her energy recharge and giving energy recharge to your other characters, or giving energy to your other characters. If you were to be running Raiden with like Nahida and an Aggravate kind of team, then maybe doing like Instructors would be better, right? Because Instructor's going to give EM to your other party members, so you can just get a ton of EM on Raiden without investing in the EM on Raiden. Now, for weapons, we want to make sure that we have a weapon with a high base attack. So, for example, I have Skyward Harp. Skyward Harp has 674 base attack. It is the highest base attack that you can get on a bow. So this is a very, very good option for Sara. If we were to look at some other weapons that have some base attack, like Song of Stillness only has 449, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. We don't care about the attack percent. We want the base attack. Some 4-star weapons that you can use are going to be like Alley Hunter, which should have a really high base attack whenever it's fully leveled up. It's not going to break 600, but it's going to be in the 500s. Favonius, just to get some extra energy recharge, it's not going to break 500. So this is going to be much more of an ER weapon versus an attack weapon. Or something like Moan's Moon, that can also have a very high base attack, and it's also going to let her do a little bit more damage because of all of the burst energy costs of everybody else in the party, right? So this can be a pretty good kind of middle ground 4-star weapon. So to show off the full build of my Sara, she's level 90 out of 90 with 14,589 HP, attack 1840, EM 96. Her crit split is 52.7 over 163.3 with a 203 energy recharge. For weapons, as you saw earlier, she is running a level 90 Skyward Harp R1 with 4-piece emblem. She is C6. And then her talents 113.7. Make sure you crown her skill. Even though the burst can give the buff, it is basing it on where the skill is at. So make sure that you crown the skill. You don't necessarily have to crown her burst. I have her burst leveled up a little bit just for extra damage, not for an attack buff. So remember that. Now that is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, do be sure to leave it down in the comments. Myself or somebody else should answer it, and I'll see you in the next one.